Okay, so yesterday, yesterday we did introduction to research. We did introduction to research, and we were able to touch on a number of subjects. We were able to touch on um, structures and the component of research, which is structure and content. We were able to touch on variables, constructs and variables. And we were able to touch on content generation. We were able to touch on developing your objective through your construct and variables. But today we are going to be touching on literature review. So let's see how it goes. So literature review in your dissertation is most of the time. Literature review in your dissertation most of the time is the second chapter of your. Sorry, I'm making some settings. Okay, literature review. Please give me a sec. So literature review most of the time is the second chapter of your dissertation, and most of the time it stems from your research objective. Yesterday we were talking about the importance of research objective, and we were able to establish that your research objective comes from your construct and variable. And today, talking about literature review, this is our outline for today. We've already done a brief recap for yesterday's class. So this is the component for literature. Sorry, I had a network glitch. Share my screen back. Okay, the component of literature review. We have conceptual review, empirical review, theoretical research gap, um, conceptual framework. So let's delve into it. So your conceptual review is all about conceptual clarification, conceptual analysis of existing literature. It involves expanding on concepts, especially from literature that is in line, that is related to the topic you are dealing with. So conceptual framework, conceptual review, like I said, it deals with conceptual clarification of your concept. And in case you are not here yesterday, we touched so much on the subjects of construct and variables. We talked so much on it. We're able to establish that is the fabric of your work. And to further that thought, a lot of times your conceptual review is drawn from your conceptual and your variable. Sorry. Sorry about that. So okay. So conceptual review, it's you can draw it from your consultant variable. We are not in yesterday's class. You can go and see the replay. So conceptual review, it's all about conceptual clarification and conceptual analysis of your existing literature. It involves expanding on key concepts in the topic you are dealing with from existing journals, addressing related topic to your related topic of your study. Key concepts normally stem from your constructs and variables. We were using an example yesterday. Okay. So we're using an example of a topic yesterday, which is the impact of generative AI on digital marketing productivity. We were able to break down the topic into dependent construct and an independent construct. Independent construct is generative AI. The dependent construct is digital marketing productivity, and we're able to give explanation of the difference between dependent and independent constructs. And further, I said your dependent, your variables comes and constructs. So generative AI has its own variables, which is the example we used was ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a generative AI. It's not the only generative AI. We have a host of them. And I said, you can decide to have one independent variable, and you can decide to have 2, 3, 4, depending on how deep and how voluminous you want your work to be. And I gave reasons why, justification for choosing certain number of variables. But for your independent variable can be as many as the number of your objective, and it can be 2, but it cannot be 1. We were able to establish that your independent variable, your independent construct is the most important construct, because everything, it is the one that determines the outcome you get. So analysis of existing literature, and key concepts should stem from the set of objectives you adopted, your construct and variables. That means if you are coming up with conceptual review, it has to be in line with your objective. But your objective is in line with such that when founding on your concepts, the concept you choose and useful in your analysis later on. Because when you are doing analysis of your findings, you are meant to draw on existing literature to corroborate your findings, whether your findings is in line with existing literature or there's a difference, there's a deviation, probably based on location, based on choice of methodology, based on case study, and stuff like that. So I said, for instance, the topic we used yesterday was the impact of generative AI on digital marketing productivity. So this could be an example of the conceptual review you can use. Number one is evolution of generative AI. It can be one of your conceptual review, digital marketing productivity, the cost efficiency of generative AI, time efficiency of generative AI. These are concepts you can use depending on the set of objectives you choose. Yesterday we were able to use 2 sets of objectives as our example. We're able to use 2 sets of objectives as our example. And we said our objective one was the impact of ChatGPT speed. So ChatGPT it's a variable here. So if we decide to adopt a concept like the evolution of generative AI, it's still very much in line with our objective. There's no deviation. So when we're not talking about in your process of explaining and talking about the evolution of generative AI, you can now lean more on ChatGPT because ChatGPT is a variable you are using. The principle here is that when you are developing your conceptual review, you don't go outside of your chosen variables, because when you are everything you are doing is going to be leaning on your choice of variables. When you are developing your research instrument, it's your set of variables that you are going to be using to develop your research instrument. Your research instruments such as questionnaire, such as interview. So yes, you are drawing your research instrument from your variables. All right. So these are the components of conceptual review includes conceptual definition and clarification. That's number one, extracting findings and integrating them into a form of comprehensive understanding. To form a comprehensive understanding, identify relationship between concepts. So when you are developing your conceptual review, the component, the things you should look, what is expected of you is you make conceptual clarification. So, for instance, in this previous slide, we use and you want to expand on the evolution of generative. You are meant to give a conceptual clarification of what generative AI means from the perspective of a host of authors. When I was being taught how to do literature review, I was taught by a doctor that has been extensively trained on literature review from different countries. According to her, she's been to Kenya, South Africa, United States, just to learn literature review. And she taught me, when you are doing literature review, you are meant to, number one, your voice must, even though you are collating the views and perspective of many authors, your voice must show in your literature review. You cannot allow your voice to drown in the opinion of every other person's. Of course, your voice will show most likely in your last paragraph. So, according to her, when she was teaching me, she said when you're doing your conceptual verifications, just on generative AI, you can look at what 10 different authors said, and you can group it into geographical locations, or you can group it into dispensations. Geographical location in the sense of, okay, what is the definition of generative AI in developing countries? What is the definition of generative AI in developed countries? You know, what is the definition of generative AI in Nigeria? Let's say your case study is Nigeria. You are using Nigeria as your case study. So you are going to give a perspective. You are going to group the perspective of different locations into paragraphs. So at the end of the day, you are going to adopt particular definition for the sake of your study and on your last paragraph under the evolution of generative AI. You get. So as you are bringing a host of views, you are referencing them, like Adiolu et al. Says generative AI is this, that. Why you link your definitions, you link it together, you let it flow from one definition to another in a coherent manner. And when I was explaining how to generate content, one of the points I established was that you are to read extensively before you start to write. The first thing you do is to read, because when you naturally, it makes the information to sink into you in a way that when information is coming back, it's coming back with a mixture of your own understanding. Even though you are still going to reference the people you gleaned the information from. So such a way that it's not copy and paste, because if it's copy and paste, whether you reference them or not, you are still going to be penalized for plagiarism. We are going to touch on references briefly on this call. So let's progress. So I said conceptual definition and clarification. You are meant to extract findings and integrate them in a comprehensive understanding, such that you look at when you are reviewing journals and you are reviewing a particular concept from different journals, you are also mindful of their findings. You are mindful of their outcomes, and majority of the time you will see the outcome in the abstract. When you are reading, the first place you read is the abstract. If you are now looking for specific information, you can now go deep into the journal and read whatever is there to buttress whichever point you want to buttress. I said in your literature review, your conceptual review is one of the most important pillars of your work. Because conceptual review is the aspect of your literature review that takes bulk of the word count. Your conceptual review alone can take 50% of your word count in your chapter, because you have to make, for your conceptual review alone, we can, depending on the bulkiness of your work, you can review 50 to 100 journals. For your conceptual review, you can review 50 to 100 journals. Of course, those journals will be useful for other aspects of your literature review. So, theoretical review. So your theoretical review involves a critical analysis of theories that are relevant to your research topic. It systematically examines key concepts, models, framework, and foundational theories that support the subject being studied. And when you are writing dissertation, your dissertation is not complete until you back it up with an existing theory. And every subject, every topic has a theory that can back it up. For instance, this topic we used as an example yesterday, the impact of generative AI on digital marketing productivity. There are a host of theories that can work for it. Theory of acceptable model, that's STAM. Can use theory of planned behavior, a host of many other theories like that can be used. And the principle, there was a work somebody sent to me, that should be 2 months ago, to EPA review, that was last month. And I saw she used seven theories for one work. I was like, no, it is wrong. So majorly your work will have one primary theory that backs up your work. Then you can have a second theory to that will be like a supportive theory. But having up to 7 theory, it's academically wrong, except your supervisor specifically demand for it. So majority of the time, it's not supposed to be more than 3. 1 is the most acceptable number of theories, and then 1 or 2, but occasionally it can be 3. But 7, that's a stretch. So theories, we have theories in every field. We have theories in business management, theories in health, theories in accounting, in economics, in arts. There's theories in every field of work, in every field of life. And there are certain theories that they are useful in multiple fields. For instance, theory of planned behavior is used in business administration, it's used in medicine, it's used in accounting, it's used in economics. You know, it has variety of usage. There are other theories like that they can be used in multiple fields. Yeah, for instance, this work, we can use technology acceptable model as our theory, because it's dealing with generative AI. We cannot really separate AI from technology. And we can also use theory of planned behavior because it's dealing with marketing. Marketing is all about targeting human behavior to get marketing outcomes. So the next slide, we're talking about component of theoretical review. So for your theoretical review to be complete, that's our 4 major components: the proponent, the assumption, the criticism, and the application. The proponent talks about the person or institution that propounded the theory. Every theory has an author. And there are some theories, they don't have an author, but they have an institution. It was propounded by a body, maybe by World Health Organization or European Union or something. Then every theory has an assumption, every theory has a criticism, every theory has its application. So you have to tell us you have to tell us the proponent of your theory, the assumption theory, the application of your theory. So before we move to empirical review, I'm just going to be showing you an example of the work we did yesterday. So when I researched, these are the different theories you can decide to use for the topic we used yesterday. Technology acceptance model, the derivation of innovation theory, resource-based view, theory of planned behavior. You can decide to choose any 2. You have 1 primary and 1 secondary theory. And these are the components of those theories. TAM was developed by Fred Davis in 1989. You know, it has its assumption. The assumption is passive usefulness and passive ease of use. Technological assumption is rational and is driven by individual attitude towards the system. Criticism, they say it is overly simplified and does not account for external factors. You know, relevance. Digital marketers perceive generative AI tools and the ease of integration. Usefulness for the study, for studying the likelihood of AI adoption in digital marketing process. So we can see that this particular theory, it passed the test of the 4 components. It has a proponent, it has an assumption, it has its own set of criticism, it is relevant to the study, same as the diffusion of innovation theory. So for every topic, you can have up to 7 theory that can work for it, but you just have to narrow it down to just 2 that is best for your work. So resource-based view said was propounded by J. Barney, 1991. So it was propounded by Jim Barney by 1991. And it has its assumption. The assumption the competitive advantage stems from resources that are valuable, rare, immutable, and non-suitable, and non-substitutable. So it has its own criticism. It focuses heavily on external resources and may ignore, it focuses heavily on internal resources and may ignore external factors. So if you look at the criticism of TAM and how BV, you can see that their criticism is somewhat similar. You can see that this one, they said is overly simplistic and doesn't account for external factors. This one too, they said it ignores external factors. That means if you want to choose theories for your work, you shouldn't choose both of these. You should choose one theory and another theory that covers for the shortage of that first theory. You get. So since this one is accused to be heavily focused only on internal factors and ignores external factors, you can find another theory that focuses on external factor. You know. Okay. Theory of planned behavior. Theory of planned behavior. Okay. It was proposed by Isaac Adsen. The assumptions are behavior is guided by intentions, which are influenced by attitude, subjective norms, and passive behavioral control. People's actions are the result of deliberate planning based on valuable information. The criticism does not consider unconscious behavior or spontaneous action. Assume people always act in line with their intention, which isn't always true in real world, and relevance to the study. So at the end of the day, your theory must pass the test of these 4 components: the proponent, the assumption of the theory, the criticism of the theory, and the application of the theory. So let's move to empirical review. Empirical review is mainly about, it talks about the findings of past works. You know, we also talk about conceptual review, that conceptual review synthesizes past studies. For conceptual review is more like you are giving your interpretation of the findings of those authors. Why empirical review? You say it as it is. You say it as it is. Sorry, something was distracting me. I want to take it off. So empirical review is mainly about findings of past work. the component of empirical review has its component just like theories have its components. Yes, and the component of empirical review is the summary of empirical review is abstract. The findings, the methodology, the conclusion, the topic, the author, and it has to be organized in an orderly manner. It's either organized in a chronological manner or geographical manner. You can arrange your empirical review in such a way that you can arrange it yearly from old to new or from new to old, but it has to be orderly. It cannot be scattered. And then what they are looking for in your empirical review is the findings, the methodology used, sometimes the aim, not the objective, the aim of the work. For instance, you can say Adiolu 2003 in his study, the adoption of generative AI in digital marketing efficiency, found out that digital marketing, generative AI is highly efficient in reaching large number of clients at the same time. And it's easy to use, it's efficient and time and cost efficient. That's his own findings, but we talk about the methodology too. Adiolu was able to survey 350 respondents in the city of Lagos, Nigeria. So that's an example of an empirical review, and you will find your empirical review in abstract. If you download journals, everything in your abstracts, you can extract it and use it as your empirical review. You can paraphrase it in such a way that it will not result in plagiarism. So that is the component of empirical review: the findings, the topic, the author, the topic, the aim, the findings, the methodology, and the conclusion. And it has to be organized from either chronologically or geographically. It can be in Africa, in developed countries. Depending on the nature of your work. Yeah, depending on your word count, the empirical review can range from 10 to 20 empirical reviews, whereby for each of the articles, you are touching on the findings, you are touching on the aim, the methodology, the finding, the conclusion. You are touching on each in a chronological manner. And from your empirical review, you can also identify some gaps in literature. In explaining research gap, in explaining gap in literature, there's something we call literature. In some places, they call it literature mapping. It can either be literature matrix or literature mapping. In conducting a literature matrix or mapping, you can have a host of 50 journals. You can use 50 journals as a literature matrix, and you tabularize it. You tabularize your literature matrix, whereby it has author, year of publication, methodology, and findings. It has all those columns. And for each of the 50 journals, you identify, the name of the author, the year of publication. Sometimes you can put location, whereby maybe the study was conducted in Nigeria, it was conducted in Ghana, it was conducted in South Africa, and all that. You can then define the methodology used, then the findings. The findings can either be findings or conclusion. So, and then you do it for 50 journals. So at the end of the day, when you do it for 50 journals, at the end of the day, when you do it for 50 journals, you look at what is lacking in those 50 journals. You are looking for gaps. The gap might be, it can be methodological, it can be methodology gap. It can be a relevance gap. It might be a trend gap. For instance, is some study conducted pre-COVID. COVID changed the narrative. COVID changed a lot of variables, such that there are some study you conducted pre-COVID, and after COVID, the outcome is not the same because of the impact of COVID. You get. So there are studies conducted World War II and post World War II. The outcome will be different because of the impact of the war. And it's the same thing as COVID-19. Also, in some niche, there are some study you conduct the adoption of AI, and there are some study you conducted post adoption of AI. The outcome might not be the same. So AI can introduce that gap in literature. So I say research gap is what makes your work relevant and also different. So we are conducting a study on the impact of generative AI on digital marketing productivity. Why is that study relevant now? What do we want to research on that previous researchers have not researched on? So a gap needs to be identified for that study to have a justification. You know? So after downloading 50 journals and scrutinizing them one after the other, I can look at it and be like, what is missing here? It might be that your research gap can also be variable based. It might be that there are a set of variables that has not been explored before. You know, there are a set of variables that have not been explored before. That can be your gap. The gap might be geographical. Probably this study, you realize that the impact of generative AI on digital marketing performance is more studied, that has been conducted more in developed countries and has been scarcely researched in developing countries. That can be your gap. You can see like maybe out of 50 journals that you did the research matrix for, it might be just one that is from Nigeria. Or the one from Nigeria, say, you discover that it was conducted in Lagos. It can be a gap, like, how is this same study, how will it be if you conduct it in the north? You know, conducting it in the north can be a gap. So your research gap can be geographical, it can be time-based. You can realize that a particular study, the last time that this study was well researched was 10 years ago. So you want to see if anything has changed, if there has been a shift in trend, if there has been a shift in taste, in preference, if there has been a shift in relevance. So that is what research gap is all about. And then research gap, like I said, it can be methodology gap. Maybe you realize that a particular study has been quantitatively and qualitatively researched that you want to understand is subjective, because when we use quantity, tomorrow we're going to be talking about methodology, because when we use quantitative, method, it can box respondents to a corner that it is only the question you ask them that they can answer. You cannot, and then even the question you ask them, you have designed how you want the question to be answered. You have designed it in your questionnaire such that they cannot voice a varied opinion beyond the option you've given them. So you might want to see, if I conduct this study quantitatively, will the outcome be different? Or probably I should use mixed method. Probably I should use only qualitative, since we have more of quantitative research out there. So you can now corroborate the outcome of your study with existing literature, with existing studies, based on using a new set of methodology, based on using a different methodology. Okay, yeah, I know that I'm just grazing through this. Probably when you answer your question, we can go deeper. So I just want to touch just briefly on references, because we cannot say we've taught research writing if we don't talk about references. We cannot say we've touched research writing if we don't talk about references. So let's just talk about references briefly. So I said references is key when it comes to academic writing. The difference between academic writing and other form of writing is references. I said that yesterday, that one of the difference between academic writing and non-academic writing is references. And referencing is done to avoid plagiarism, which is copying the intellectual work of other people without acknowledging them. So when it comes to referencing, you have to reference, like I was saying yesterday, the difference between research writing and content creation is references. I was saying research writing is not purely inspirational, is based on what other people have done. You are leaning on the work of other people in order to write your own. That is what research is. And I was saying research means any English word that you see "he" as a prefix, it means that it means again. When you say research, it means you are searching again. When you say repeat, it means you are telling the person to say what they've said again. When you say replenish, it means you need something to be replenished, like to be. When you say refill, means something to be filled again. When you say, that's how he means again. Reference means you are referencing somebody, if there's anything like that. So that's research. So when you are writing research, you are meant to reference other authors. Somebody was joking, said one crazy thing about research is, let's say you are writing your dissertation on bread, and everybody knows that bread is soft, and you want to write bread is soft. You cannot just write bread is soft because you know bread is soft. You have to reference somebody, you have to find somebody that said bread is soft in 2001. The problem is you cannot reference the person because the reference is good. So you have to find somebody else that said bread is soft in 2004, 2024. Then you say bread is soft, Adiolu 2024. Bread is soft is common knowledge, but in research, they don't want to know that's common knowledge. You still have to find someone that have said it, and you reference the person. So, and then another thing about referencing is you cannot just copy and paste. You cannot just, the problem is, okay, let's say somebody said bread is soft in 2001. and you want to, and somebody else say bread is salt, somebody wants to say bread is salt in 2024, they cannot just say bread is salt. They have to find a way to say bread is salt without saying bread is salt, and still reference the person that originally said bread is salt. It means you have to paraphrase what the person said. So you have to find an antonym of, you have to find a synonym of salt. Bread is, I don't know, bread is anything other than salt, but you still mean it is salt. And then you still have to reference the person. So that's how crazy research can be. You say what somebody else has said in a paraphrased manner, but still reference the person for saying it. Or else, if you copy what the person said verbatim and you reference them, you will still be penalized for stealing their word. So there are references style. We have different kind of references style. We have all right. So we have there are references style. There are different kinds of references style. We have Harvard, we have APA. Depending on the school and the country, in Nigeria, we most of the time we use APA, about 6, 7, or 8. Overseas in the UK, they use Harvard references style most of the time. And then there are other references style, but Harvard and APA is kind of popular. There are other references style too. Such a way that there's a way they want your references, your bibliography to be arranged. There's a way they want your inter citation to be arranged. You know, every referencing style has its own arrangement. Then we also have reference managers. We have Mendeley, we have EndNote, we have MyBib, we have SciDem, right? We have other host of references style. We have referencing manager. Referencing manager is a place whereby you collate your references automatically, that your reference manager can arrange your references for you in an alphabetic order and can also bring out your references in your preferred referencing style, such that you can set your reference manager in a particular reference style, and every reference you put there, it will help you arrange it in accordance to that reference style. Yeah, I've said this before. So, Mr. Opadosun, I don't know if you're on the call. Mr. Opadosun, I don't know if you're on the call. You can come up now, sir, and continue this conversation. But before you come, okay.
Good evening. Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the time and thanks for the lectures. They are actually very key and very on point. I think before I will come up this night, I want people to like to ask 1 or 2, 3 questions in the chat box or through whatever means.
All right. So if you have any question based on what we've said so far, kindly ask so that it can deepen the conversation. If you have any, you can show a raise of hand if you have. Okay, Michael, ask a question.
Okay, all right. Good evening, sir. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for this session, sir. All right, sir. My question is around research gap you mentioned the other time, sir. You made mention of literature matrix, literature map. I don't know if you can brush through it again. As regard the research gap, you made mention of something like that, sir. Thank you, sir. And
Okay.
also, sir, I still have another question, sir.
All right.
Okay, like, is there a particular order in which our literature review, like the chapter 2, is meant to be? Like, in what order should we put our conceptual review, theoretical, blah, 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 like that? Like, what should be the order, sir?
Okay. Yeah. Let me start from your last question. The order of your literature review is depending on your school. Some people start from introduction, then you move to conceptual review, then theoretical, then empirical. Some people they start from theoretical. Most of the time, your research gap is what comes last. So it can either start from theoretical or from conceptual, depending on the format of the school involved. So, and concerning literature gap, literature metrics, I will have, if I've had it in a, let me see, if I've had it in a place, I will have shown an example of a literature matrix. So probably before this conversation ends, I might find it and share it the way it looks like. So, but when your question on research gap, yeah, research gap, it can be methodological, like I said, it can be empirical, it can be practical, it can be geographical, it can be theoretical. Just find a gap. Gap means something lacking, something in the study, something that is missing. Yeah, something that is missing, like a gap. You just feel like, why is nobody talking about this? And you decide to talk about it. It's just that the problem with that is the problem in venturing into an area that has not been well talked about is um it's my lack empirical backing, such that you might not have too many literatures to lean on to corroborate your own work. So yeah, Kamisu, you can ask your question too. You
Hello,
can
sir.
all right.
Thank you very much for this rich and insightful presentation. My question is about the research. Last week, I had a discussion with an academic doctor about research, and he told me that research have to start with literature review, because it is only through literature review that you can be able to construct a very, very catchy introduction, background of the research, and that you can be able to identify the gaps. But what I normally do, I start with introduction. So, but he insisted that for a good research, you have to start with literature review. So I need your take on this. How do you see it?
Yeah. Your professor is right. Your professor is right. Were you here yesterday, Kamisu? Were you here yesterday?
No, sir, I wasn't here.
You were not here yesterday. Yeah, we touched on it yesterday under generating content for your work. And we said the first place you start is for downloading and reading as many materials as possible that is relating to your study. And that's more like literature review. When you start reading, it's more like literature review. It's not until when you start writing that your literature review starts. Mr. Paddleton too, we still touch on all these questions. So it's not when you start writing, that's not when your literature, in fact, yeah, your lecturer is absolutely right. Start from reading journals. In fact, that is where you identify your objective. It is from reading journal that you identify the objective you want to use. It is when you understand the methodology that is fitting for your work based on the work of other people. You'll have seen the methodology they used. You'll have seen the objective they used. You'll have seen their research instruments. So from there, you can have an idea of what to do in your own case. So yeah, he's right. It's your work starts from what it means. It doesn't mean that you start it from writing your literature review. It just means that you start from actually reading literatures, because your background is studied too is more like a mini. It's not a literature review, but it's more like it's similar to literature review because you are digging into background, giving background information on your study and all that. Theo, sorry, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
My question is that, can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, sir.
Okay, now, my question is that,
yes, sir, I can hear you.
The first question is that, if in research, if you are carrying out the research on a particular thing, and at the end of the day, what you find out as your finding doesn't corroborate with what in fact, what others, scholars have said on that thing. In terms of reporting it, do you have to report it the way it is? Because most people will say that you must have a backing of scholar before you can report it. That is one. Then second thing is that most time when we are talking about research,
okay,
some people believe that, for instance, we have to look at articles, but articles and real, article, there's a difference between article and real research work that we submit in form of a dissertation to schools. So, for instance, I came across, I had this issue in my department. So I searched for a topic for my topic, and I realized that this particular area has not been it has not been widely widely covered by scholars. So but I now picked that as a gap. So my supervisor was now telling me that that's not a gap. Somebody has spoke on it, last year, 2 years, they have submitted to the department. No, I was not like, but we can't, it's not online or something like that. So what can you say on that angle? Because most times they will say we should go online and look for certain things, but by the time they will now refer that it has been done in departments, yeah, somebody has done that thing. So what can you say on that? That is my question.
All right, sir. Mr. Okado, to me, I think you want to answer that question.
Okay. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity and the privilege to be part of this class and lecture. Okay, let me start with the last person that has the question. Yeah, based on the last question that you asked, that maybe you've created your own gap, maybe through the time when you review your literature, you were able to detect something, but thereafter, when you submitted your work to your supervisor, it was later got to know that the person has actually done something like that in a year before, maybe like session or thereabout. It shows you actually didn't do your work deeper. Now, if you have done that, before you have gone too far, your supervisor will have told you that this gap has been covered by somebody. Sure, you get that. So by that time, the only thing you could do is to look for a better way to now strategize your own gap that will be a bit different from that person. And these are some of the ways that gap could come in. Your gap could be methodological, like the organizer said the other time. It could be in terms of methodology. It could be in terms of scope. That's talking about the time frame to cover. Maybe somebody did the work and it lasted till 2022. You're expanding your own scope from 1980 to 2023. That's another gap entirely, because there's a data that the person didn't cover in 2022 that you now have data for 2023. That's a scope. That's a particular gap also. And the gap will be in terms of geographical. maybe somebody did this work for Nigeria specifically, you could consider Sub-Saharan Africa. You could consider ECOWAS. You could also consider all this monetary zone. You could also consider some countries that have the same characteristics with Nigeria and thereafter. In Africa, we still have some subset of Africans that they have the same characteristics with Nigeria. So that somebody has done something related to your gap shouldn't stop you from continuing with that work. What you need to sit down with your supervisor is, okay, what is the other way that you could broaden that work that will totally be different from what the person has done and submitted to the department? So, maybe the person did for Sub-Saharan Africa, then you can pick it up and use this, there is this 7G, there is this Brazil that we normally use, all these 7G countries and things like that. You can use them and find out if it is researchable in that area. So, I felt that factor alone shouldn't stop you from continuing with your work. It's just that your relationship with the supervisor really matters a lot. That is that. Then another thing about the reviewing of paper, before we can start any researchable work, you have a mind. Now, you've reviewed paper and the outcome you got from paper says so things has been maybe negatively affected this, maybe positively related to this or thereabouts. But when you did your own findings, I'm trying to address this first question now. But when you did your findings, it seems different from what the person has said earlier. Yes, that's the purpose of research. You are not meant to have a positive or a kind of structured mind to what you must get. It is what you got from your findings that you have to report. So that's why the methodology and your analysis is very key. If you use a correct method, you will get a particular response, you get a particular outcome, and that is the outcome you have to report. That's what we call research. If somebody got something that is positively related to one thing, your own will be negatively related to something. And then you will now come up with, okay, what are the factors that now happen between the time when somebody got positively related result and when you now got a negative related result? There must be something. Look at what is happening in Nigeria recently. There are a lot of reforms that Tinubu is doing in his government. Somebody that has done research on exchange rate, inflation, and maybe on so many macroeconomic variables in 2 years ago and last year cannot be getting the same result with 2024 thereafter. Because there are a lot of reforms going on thereafter that will change. And you cannot attribute those changes in your result now to any policy that will be implemented in a country. So, irrespective of what you have gotten in your result, it is expected like that in the research. But something caused that particular outcome to be that way. It didn't just happen out of the blues. Something happened. Look at someone that did some research in 2017, 2018, 2019, shortly before COVID-19, when there was a strike and there was natural cause of COVID-19. So many things changed. And people could attribute so many changes to COVID-19. You could see a lot of papers that people wrote and published about COVID-19. So COVID-19 actually caused a lot of things, some positively related, some negatively related, but they could attribute it to COVID-19 as a factor. So when somebody got a positive result or got a particular outcome in a paper they published or in the thesis they submitted to a department, when you are doing your own and you got contrary results, nothing should cause an alarm in that. It is like that. It is expected in such manner in a research. You are not meant to even get the same thing. Immediately you got the same thing, you haven't done anything. You are not expected to get the same thing. You can only get something related, likely possible related. Let's assume that the coefficient of a variable y that was interpreted in the last paper was 0.3. Your own will be 0.02, 0.2. Something must change. And then you now tell us what really caused that little change in that particular outcome that you have gotten. So, in a nutshell, when you got a contrary result to what someone has done in the past, you have to report it in such manner, exact like that. But you must tell us what happened, why your own result seems different. And that's exactly one of the gaps that you covered that the person did not cover. So by the time the person is trying to do another work, we come to your own work and reference your work. So that is that. Thank you, sir. So to Michael Uwapelumi, I think Brotosin has actually give a response, a positive response to his question. No, we can't have any other answer more than that. Sure you get. So thank you so much. And this night, about I don't know if anybody has questions, you can wait, write it down. Let me quickly run through a few things that I want to say as regards this class tonight. Sorry, the person that has the question used ITEL X663L. I don't know. Are you satisfied with the response or?
Yes. Thank you so much, sir. You've actually, answered the question. Yes, thank you.
Okay,
I
all
really
right.
appreciate.
Yes, sir. You're most welcome, sir. Okay, somebody asked a question. Sister Gladys. Okay, can we have your question, sir? Ma. Okay. Can I read it through the chat?
Yeah, she's asking about
Using generative AI.
using AI. I think I will answer that question later. You can continue, sir.
Okay, all right, no problem. Thank you. So for tonight, I don't know, can I have the privilege to share my screen just to run through certain things? So I've sent a request. Okay, thank you. Sorry, can we see my screen now?